Hello. Today we're going to talk about a slightly different concept than some of the things I talked about before, but it's also going to be an educational experience in addition to being a little bit on a different topic here. When I used to work in the corporate world, which is a long time ago, but still happened, my manager um, got together with a gentleman from a company that did tests, psychological tests, psychiatric tests, whatever they call them. Psychological, I think they call it tests. And he basically convinced them that it would make sense to go ahead and conduct these tests for all the employees. And it was pretty expensive. I remember it was pretty pricey at the time. And of course, you pay the price for every single person you test. And the reason my manager, who usually is not exactly into jumping into new things and doing stuff because somebody tells him, the reason he agreed to it is because the concept was that when you're hiring people, it's really difficult to gauge their effectiveness and their productivity and their ability to work with other people, being part of a team, in other words. So what's happening is you wind up interviewing somebody, and they may sound phenomenal, because obviously anybody can say whatever they want, anybody can give you whatever piece of paper they want. You really don't know until you start working with them exactly how potent this particular employee will be, not only on his own or her own, but also in terms of how will they gel with the entire team in the company. And so the idea behind these tests were to, first of all, do the test on existing employees. So he wanted me to take the test, and it was like initially like 3.5-hour test. And then my initial reaction was, why am I taking a test? Deer in the headlights look, and why do I need to take a test? I mean, I've been working here for almost 10 years, and what are you doing to me? But he quickly calmed me down, saying that it's no big deal. I'm just trying to get everybody who works right now in the department to take this test, and then the test comes back with certain, basically kind of like a chart, almost like a graph of where the person is on these different categories of importance, if you will. And then he would be doing the same tests with new people that are coming in, that he is interviewing for potential jobs, and see how they match up with the existing employees. And the idea was that if they match up fairly closely, then there should be decent amount of congruence between all the different team members, and then there is a lesser chance of something going haywire. Because if you think about any business, you bring somebody in, they need a certain amount of time to get acclimated, to get trained, to get educated, to get used to the environment, used to the people, used to the business. It doesn't matter if you've done this for 50 years before. Every new company will be a new company. So with that in mind, it's a real problem for a lot of businesses, because especially small businesses, even more so, because they don't have the resources big businesses have. They can't just burn through the money like some other businesses that can afford to do that, although no business wants to do that. And so what happens, you get this employee in, they work there for like 3 months until you finally kind of get to see how well they're doing, and then you have to let them go. Okay? And you're trying to train them, you're trying to work with them and see how they do, and they don't. They just do not work well with the team. And so it winds up being a major waste of time and major waste of expense at the same time for the company to try to have all these people come in. Obviously, it's a distraction for the business itself, because you've got this constant chaos going on within the department with all these new people coming in and leaving, somebody else coming in. So it's a problem. So the idea of the test is actually pretty valid from that standpoint, because you can try to have a tool, you as a business owner, to have this test conducted between all the employees that you have currently, and then with a certain amount of certainty, if you will, you can see that there is a good chance. I mean, it's still not 100% guaranteed, but there's a good chance, if the people score in this test in these categories that are important for your particular business, if they score well and they score similarly to other people, then it's probably a good idea to hire them. Obviously, you also need to look at their resumes and interview them 1 or more times as well. But this test allows you to do something more meaningful business-wise. And so thinking about it, I was just thinking that we've talked before about Google Forms and how you can use Google Forms for all kinds of different reasons. And one of the features that hasn't been talked much about Google Forms is their ability. And so I didn't invite any teachers to this particular hangout, but it's definitely an important thing for them, because I wanted to specifically talk about business end of it and having tests conducted for the purposes of what I just talked about. But it's the same exact technology can easily be used in the classroom to conduct tests with students. I mean, it's exactly the same deal. The tests would be different, but the actual implementation and how the thing would work would be the same. And one of the nice features, new features of Google Forms right now, they have ability to do, they call it quizzes, basically, like conducting a quiz. So let me jump into screen share here and go into it in more detail and show exactly what I mean. So I got here to my, actually, I don't want to go here. I want to go to Forms. Go to forms.google.com, and when you go to forms.google.com, it gives you a brand new. It gives you this. I was at Sheets. This is at Forms. It gives you the interface to your existing forms, and you can, start a new form from this interface, and you can start with a new form or existing form. So we'll start a brand new form. Okay, we'll just do a blank form. So I click on this blank form, and for now, let's just put in. We'll come up with a field called name. And this would be called the psych test to scare people. And then we'll have option 1. It's not going to be option 1. It's going to be a short answer. And we'll make this a required field. And I'm just setting up really basic, because I don't want to take the time. If you don't know how to do Google Forms, just go back to one of the other, there's myriad of these tutorials on Google Forms, including some things I've done. You can check it out. So I'm assuming that you'd know you can follow me here to know how to do Google Forms. So we set up name, and then we've set up, let's set up another field for, let's say, believe it or not, this was one of the questions I had on my test. That thing really stood out. And yes, no, okay. And let's just do that. Okay, we'll just set it up like that. We'll make it okay. So I put in these 2 fields, right? And then also, with a form, we need to have responses. And we'll set up a response real quick. Just 1 second. Let's give it a name first. It's actually psych test. And we'll set up, this is just a little bit of setup here. Create spreadsheet. So we got our spreadsheet, good. And definition, okay. And I'm looking for something. Let's see here. What the heck? 1 second. Okay. Inventory response set it from, okay. So in terms of basic settings, you just set up the spreadsheet, usual deal, nothing special. Here is what you need to do to get this to the special different kind of form. When you go to settings in the forms themselves here, by clicking on the cog here, this will give you this pop-up, and you can see one of the options here is quizzes. Okay, so it's kind of ghosted and stuff, but it's there. And so what this means is it means that you can make this particular form be a quiz. As you can see, because it's ghosted and because it's kind of subdued and because it's a third option from the left in settings, by default, you don't even see that being there, but it's there for every single form if you want to do it. And what you need to do, the first thing is you need to make it this a quiz. Okay, and I realize we're doing a test, not a quiz, but it's the same concept. Okay, and then the quiz options when you turn it on are immediately release grade immediately after your submission or don't release, and it's up to you. I mean, if you want to set it up so you can look at the results afterwards, you don't want the employee to see, you can. In that case, you would say don't release. In this case, for the purposes of showing it to you, I'm just going to leave it as immediately after your submission, so you can actually see the response, and in a minute you'll see why. Respondent can see missed questions, correct answers, point values. So point values, I'm going to leave on. Typically, you'd want to leave it off because it's nobody really should know what these point values mean. And essentially, what you're doing is you're going to be assigning point values to the responses that people make, and then these point values would be different depending on what you want the test to be and what you want it to do. And the test itself, by the way, I'm showing you how to set it up. What I'm not showing you what the test itself will be, what this personality test will be. Because there's, if you look for personality tests online, you'll see plenty of examples of how they should be. There's some PDFs, there's some just examples, online examples, all kinds of different things. Some people show you a first page and you have to pay them to get the rest, and they're all different and they're all, looked at differently. So you'll definitely need to do some homework yourself in terms of specifically what will go into your particular test, because for every business is going to be somewhat different. I mean, there's different things that you need to be able to ask people to tell you what you're trying to look for. Are you looking for people who are independent or team players? Are you looking for people who are savvy in a particular area of the business? Maybe if you're talking about accounting, have they done any I don't know, the reconciliations of debits and credits and things like that? I mean, I don't know, something. Bottom line is that you need to identify, to do some prep work to try to figure out exactly what questions and what the test should be, how long it will be, what kind of questions it will be, and then you'll need to identify based on their answers. You'll need to give them point values that would mean something to you, whereby if they answer with the response number one, it's a fairly low point value, because it doesn't have to be about being right or wrong. In these kind of personality tests, there's no such thing. It's a different levels of degrees of what you're answering that tells the person what kind of person you are in terms of your personality and whether you'll work well. And so in terms of what it really means, what the answer really means, it'll be totally up to you. That's why I'm not showing you any of that kind of stuff. I'm just simply sharing with you how you can set up one of these tests yourself in your business. It'll be completely under your control. At the same time, it's going to be something that's not going to cost you anything but this prep time, and using the tools. Google Forms are free. It doesn't cost anything. The actual grading for the test itself will be done automatically using this approach. So you'll actually get the score at the end pronto, and you'll have all the results too for everybody in the organization, whoever you're giving tests to, over time. So you're going to have more and more information to be able to get to it. So the bottom line being is that using this approach, you can set up with a little bit of prep work and a little bit of forethought, you can set up these personality tests. Could be any tests. I'm just using personality as an example, but could be any tests for the purposes of conducting these evaluations of potential employees and seeing if you want to hire people or not. So you make the form be a quiz. And then, like I said, the missed questions simply means that respondents can see on the screen which questions they missed. In the case of personality test, you would not normally want to show it because there's no such thing as missed. I mean, if they don't put in a response, they just have zero value for that particular question, but they don't necessarily need to see which ones they missed. But if you want them to have that be visible, then you leave the check mark on. If you want them to see the correct answers, again, this is kind of geared towards school type environment. So if you're going to have something where you want to indicate to them that they answered correctly, If the question has to be with correct or incorrect, then you can do that, and then it'll show it accordingly. And the point value is just the point values. And keep in mind that whenever you see Google apps and you see anything similar to this and you have a little question mark, you can get a little bit of help by just hovering over it. So if I hover over here, it says identify which questions were answered incorrectly. And then on this one, it says show the correct answer for each question. And this one says show total points and points received for each question. So we'll leave it by default right now, just so you can see as an example. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say that. And now notice that there's a little bit of a change, because before I had the form where I had my fields, just like I have now, but at the same time, there is also now a additional information on the bottom here called answer key. And the answer key is simply a way for you to indicate what is the correct answer. Let's say that you want to say that to be yes, and you want yes to be 5 points, and you want no to be 3 points, for example. I guess you can only pick one. I thought you could pick both. Okay, so you can only pick one. So let's say that yes answer would be the correct answer, and that's going to give the person 5 points. And then the other answer is going to give them no points. Okay, and you can also add, it says add answer feedback, which means you can click on the button here, and you can indicate information that will be visible to people for the incorrect answer and for the correct answer. So that's optional, but if you wanted to, you could. You just enter whatever you want here. Okay? So in my case, I'm not putting anything in there. And so let's just put in another question here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and add another question. And I'm going to have that be called you working with a team. And then let's say we'll make this to be a checkbox. And this would be I like working by myself. And I like working in a team. And the last option will be I can work independently as well as part of a team. Yeah, something like that. You can have as many of these as you want. Okay. And again, you indicate, you click on the answer key and you indicate that, for example, that if they say they want to work as both team and independently, then you're going to give them a number of points. Otherwise, you're going to give them no points for the other answers, for example. Okay. And so keep in mind, whatever they're answering, it's still going to be recorded. So it's not like it's going to be gone. I mean, you'll see exactly every single response that these people make. You'll see them in the spreadsheet. You'll see them in even in this interface when we look at the responses right here. And so let's just go with that. Let's just go with that and actually look at the form. So to look at the form, we click on the preview. And so here's the test. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my name. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, do you feel like hitting da-da-da? So let's say we're going to say yes. And notice here it shows the points because I told it in the settings before to make it visible. But if you make it invisible, they won't see it. And I like working by myself. I mean, I like working in a team. I'll just select that. And if I submit this thing, then over here, because this is indicated that we want to let them see the responses, then they can click on this view score and they can actually see that they responded. They got 5 points out of 8. Normally, you wouldn't want to show this to people. So you disable that option. They can't even pull it up and see it. But you yourself will be able to pull it up and you can see exactly question by question. This is what they answered. And if it's answer that you wanted to be, that you actually wanted to score as the one you're looking for, you can see that it says it's 5 out of 5, and that's what it is. And then working as a team was not an answer you wanted to see, so you didn't give them any points for that because you wanted to see the third option and they didn't select it. And it says correct answer. And this is more help to you than to them because, like I said, if they don't see it, they don't see it. But as you can see, it's relatively easy to set up this quiz. And in addition to being, I showed it as a personality test. It doesn't have to be personality test or psych test or anything. It could be just an employee, I should say, test, for example, for competency. You can easily set up this kind of quiz environment for when people come in, they take a test so you can evaluate their competence, because people obviously, people are people. They can tell you they know this and they've done that, everything else. But if you give them a small test or a large test, totally up to you how small you want to make it, then you can actually have questions that are relevant to you. Like, for example, let's say you're hiring a programmer and you want to make sure they're proficient in JavaScript. So you may sprinkle some JavaScript related questions where it'd be very easy to tell if someone really knows JavaScript or not. I mean, it's not a difficult thing to do. You can just pepper it with as many questions as you want or as few as you want in different topics. You can, because of forms, you can divide it into different categories and segregate it easily with different pages, so you can have multi-category tests. So you really have all the tools you need to really make it a nice test for just about any purpose. And then the information gets stored and you can see the responses and you can see this grading. So you can see that, let's say that you're doing one of these eval tests for a potential employee, and you set it up in such a way whereby you have 80 points being the top grade for everything you're asking, and you decide that they need to get no less than 60 to be able to qualify to move to the next round. So as you can see, if you set it up initially, then when you get done with a single click, literally, you can see for that person exactly, as soon as they are done with the test, you can see exactly how many points they got. So it'll say 35 out of 80 right there at the top of the screen. And if that's the case, then you know that this person is probably not a good candidate to continue because they scored so low. Of course, if they score at 75, then obviously it's the opposite. So for personality reasons or any other reason is whenever you need to get some kind of information from people and easily score it, then that would be the case. Is you just need to come up with these forms for these tests. And if it's personality, then get a copy of one somewhere and see what's important to you and just kind of tailor it to your own needs and then set it up as a form. It's a one-time setup. You don't need to do more work than just one-time setup. And then if you, in addition to that, if you have any kind of competency tests on any topic, you can set up the same way. Obviously, this is exactly the same thing teachers can use to set it up for schools, for their students, because pretty easy to do that. And same kind of deal. You set up your answer keys, you set up your values, and there you go. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So that's one thing I wanted to show you. The second thing I wanted to show you is if we go back to the form here. Let me just jump here to the form. One of the new things that they've just added is ability to add images. And so you can in terms of responses, let me see. It may have not propagated to my version of let me just see real quick here. Yeah, no, it did. Okay, this one's already have it too. So when you go and you edit the question or you're working on a question, notice that you have your usual, I have checkbox, I have the information, all that. But on the right side here, you notice that I have a little image icon. And of course, you have the X for delete like you had before. So what I can do here is I can actually click on this image icon, and I can then use any of the usual usual culprits here to find an image of single person. We'll just take this icon, for example. And then for this one is the team. We'll just get an icon. We'll call it the team icon. hopefully we'll get a little team here. How about blue? So it's similar color to that. No, they're not working with me here. I will just use this one. Okay. And so you can have for each of these options, you can have it like that. So then when you actually satisfied with it, then when you go and pull up the form, it'll look like this. So you have each category here, not category, I'm sorry, each answer option has its own little icon right there. You can have, you know, each one have these icons there. And so where it makes sense, you can incorporate not just responses. This is a new thing they just added, not just regular response where you click and checkbox and things like that, but you can also have imagery to go with each response as well. And you can potentially just have images be the actual answers too. It doesn't have to have any wording. You could just have image 1, image 2, image 3, and then, you know, they have to pick option A, B, C type deal. So that's another thing that you can do both on these tests and any other forms you set up now. You can use these images. It's a new thing that's just been added. Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to talk about today, is how easy it is to set up a personality test or competency test or just about any other test using Google Forms. You set it up, you enter all the questions and all the answers, you give it point values by going to settings and setting it up as a quiz. And then after that, you just let people take it, and you have the scoring and everything done automatically. And when you look at the summary, right now I only have one response, but you can actually also see, when you look at the summary responses, you can see the average, the median, and the range. They show you exactly based on the points you've got what people scored at. So if you have a bunch of people doing it, you can kind of see where usually things fall into. Let's say you have 20 people that took the test. And you can at the same time just look at individual specific ones too, by looking at the individual responses. And the individual responses look like this. You know, it just shows one answer right there. And then you can move on, and, you know, there's the name indicates whose it is. And then you can move on to the next, previous, and so on, by looking at every response in detail. And of course, you can always jump into, in addition to that, you can always jump into the spreadsheet. And as you can see, it puts the information in the spreadsheet as well. And you can do something with the spreadsheet. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And I think we got it done. I'm going to conduct a quick 15-minute kind of private video conference, if you will, in this space, Google Space. And feel free to, if you have any specific questions on Google Forms or the things we talked about today, you can drop them into the Google Space that I set up specifically for this Hangout. I'll just quickly show you. People who are using Google Docs, by the way, or Google Apps, I should say, not Google Docs, Google Apps accounts, they can't use Spaces at this point. So if you're such a person, you either need to use a regular Google account if you want to play with Spaces, which of course means if you don't have one, you can just set one up. I mean, it doesn't cost anything, and it's pretty quick and easy to set up a Google account just for that purpose, so you can play with it, you know, with various things that happen that Google Apps are not quite there. I'm sure they will add it to Google Apps. It's just not something that has been done so far. And so in this Google Space, I quickly will show you here. I got several pre-set up categories. Like we've got, you know, this link to the video conference, which is where I'm going to be. So feel free to pull it up and jump in there. If you don't, if you're not able to get into Google Space and you're not able to click on that icon, the URL for this video conference is www.appear.in, appear like appearance, .in/ and then PCS -works. So it's basically my company name -works. So appear.in/ PCS -works. And if you get in there, it'll get you into the room. I can have up to 8 people in there. It's the limitation of that software. And we can just, you know, talk face to face. I'll answer your questions if you have any things like that. If you want to post some questions here, you can post them under questions. Comments, you can post under comments right there. And anything else you want to post for the particular space, you're certainly welcome to do so. Okay, with that, thank you. And till next time, I will see you in the, well, right now, we'll see you if you decide to jump into the video conference there at, again, appear.in/pcs-works. And until next time, thank you.